Joining us now, our Friday Canucks insider from Donnie and Dolly. Weekdays 10 to noon on Czech Television, the one and only Rick Dhaliwal.
How are you, sir?
Very good. Very interesting last 24 hours, Blake and Matt. The Canucks got some bodies going out. They got some bodies coming in, a couple of trades, and all of a sudden we got something to talk about other than the fact that they're 32nd overall in the NHL standings.
I was rather nonplussed by the Thursday night trade. I don't know that it's of consequence to this NHL group and fixing what's wrong right now with this group. The Ethan Bear trade, Rick, is more notable, certainly. I think it's a reasonable cost to pay. Yeah,
they've been after this player for a while. I was told last night, I asked very nicely, are the Canucks still in it? And then this morning, I got to the agent, and they were definitely showing interest for quite some time on Ethan Bear. But let's be honest. Let's take a look at the Canucks injured list. And how do you not try to do something? Hughes, Poolman, Dermott, Stillman. Poolman and Dermott, guys are dealing with head injuries. They might be out for quite some time. So I understand some people, and they don't like the trade, but sometimes you got to make deals out of necessity. So they got Ethan Bear. They've been in on him for quite some time. They've been talking with Carolina for quite some time. They finally got their player this morning.
Conditioning seemed to be the matter there with Ethan Bear. Have you talked to Rutherford about that? Are they all concerned about that? Or do they think he can turn over a new leaf here with playing time available to him?
It's funny you say that, because you got to take that conditioning comment you just made, Matt, back to Edmonton, because that first reared its ugly head that he wasn't in shape in Edmonton. Talked to his agent, Jason Davidson, who, by the way, not only has Ethan Bear, but he's got Lane Peterson, the other guy coming to Vancouver in the trade as well, both former Seattle Thunderbirds. So anyways, Ethan Bear told his agent 2 days ago he's in the best shape of his life. And look, he never got with Rod Brind'Amour, it just wasn't a match. And Rod Brind'Amour and Ethan Bear, he couldn't get in that lineup. And it's funny to me, guys, that Jalen Chatfield gets into Rod Brind'Amour's lineup, but Ethan Bear doesn't. And we see this all the time. Players got to go to the right coach and GM. And some cities it doesn't work there, but it works here. So the Canucks are going to be hoping that Ethan Bear, this is a player I think more than one person in the Canucks management likes in Ethan Bear, right shot. We know the problems and issues with the right side in Vancouver. There were rumblings that Höglander's name was in a possible deal, but I do know, and I can tell you guys, that Carolina's love for Höglander wasn't just in the last week or two. They've liked this player going back a few months, and they've identified this player as a player they like in Vancouver. But I don't get the feel. I was told by a good source that the preference is not to move Höglander, and they certainly didn't move him. But Höglander fits in. Look, guys, young players, prospect. There's not a ton of them in Vancouver, and Höglander's one of them. I know he only played 9 minutes last night. He's been up and down the lineup. He hasn't found that right feel with Coach Bruce Boudreau yet, but you don't give up on a kid like Höglander. You don't give up on Rathbone. You don't give up on Klamovich. They're not in a position right now, guys, to give up on young players. So I like the fact they did not include Höglander in the deal, but I know for a fact that Carolina's liked Höglander for quite some time.
You know what's impressive on the Bear resume, guys? The WHL playoff games. You know, like the NHL, the WHL playoffs, things get more physical, things get tougher to find space.
Yeah,
he's way above a point per game in his WHL playoff career in his 2 senior years there with the Seattle Thunderbirds. So, you know, we know that there's skill there, and what do we say about this Canuck team? They do need somebody moving the puck, and he can move the puck as well. It's an intriguing prospect for, and I don't mean prospect in terms of he's past NHL prospect. He's a 25-year-old now, but it's an intriguing prospect for the Canucks to bring in a guy like this.
Absolutely, and I look in the fact that Carolina retained $400,000 of Ethan Bear's $2.2 million. That was a good move by the Canucks. Yeah, that helps as well, because right now, with all the injuries. And so many guys on injury reserve, that just, you look at, it's tougher to make a trade and get the flexibility with so many guys hurt. It's tough to get that flexibility. I know you said Blake, that the Ethan Bear trade was bigger than the one last night, but there's a couple things I want to say about last night's trade that I want to get in. There was so much negativity about trading Myrenberg, one of the few right shot D in the system. I was told the Canucks European scouts did not feel he was projecting to be an NHL player. His development was 4 to 5 years away in the eyes of the Canucks European scouts. So that's what I was told. I know the initial reaction is always, well, and that's what Twitter is. You get to pound away on the keyboard, get your thoughts, whether, whatever you want to say, you can say. But I will tell you, if Myrenberg, if those scouts had projected that he was going to be an NHL player, he wouldn't have been involved in the deal. DiPietro, I want to get this, and I had a short conversation with DiPietro last night. He was obviously overwhelmed with the trade. He didn't have the time to talk, but I do want to say this. The agents worked hard to bring teams to the table for the Canucks who had interest in DiPietro. I know that just last week, the agents had brought a team forth to the Canucks on a DiPietro trade. I'm still trying to figure out if Boston was a team or it was another team. But the agents since day one have worked very, very hard to get DiPietro traded. He dropped to 5th on their depth chart. Let's be honest, guys. He just didn't have a future in Vancouver. So he asked for the trade. They accommodated him. So I just wanted to get those two things in.
Yeah, and I understand why some on Twitter worried about the right shot defenseman being sent out. You would have to think that Rutherford and the Canucks knew at that moment that they were going to likely get Ethan Bear, so it's a young right shot defense prospect out, whereas a right shot NHL defenseman is coming on in. Studnicka, what do you think the chances are that he's going to be an NHL player? I've talked to two people who figure he's a coin flip.
And I've talked to people that said the same thing as you. But I first of all, they like this kid as a good character, two-way center. They think he's a good prospect. And I know everyone thinks prospects are 19 and 20, 21. And you're kind of like, you're in that window at 23, 24, 25. You could still make it. There's so many teams in the NHL. The one thing that 32 teams have given hockey players is the ability to hang in there and peak at a later date. So you know what? He's 23. They like him a lot. Can he be a third line, fourth line center guy? Obviously, let's be honest. No one sees him in the top 6. But I think I'm with you, Matt. The people that I've talked to about Jack Studnick is that he is definitely a guy that is going to play. If he's going to play in Vancouver, it'll be in the bottom half the forward group for sure.
So here is something from our friend Hart Levine at Puckpedia that I think sheds a little bit more light on these trades. After acquiring Bear, the Canucks have $177,000 of cap space remaining in their LTIR pool with Pullman, Dermott, and Furland on LTIR.
Yeah.
To activate Pullman or Dermott, they would need to clear $3.8 million of annual cap hit from the current active roster. Ricky, that tells me Pullman and Dermott may be a long time away.
That's it. And that's why I think the urgency was picked up on Bear, is what I was told in the last 48 hours, also by the agent as well, Bear's agent. But let me get this in, okay, guys, because I talked to Jim Rutherford last night. Look, everybody in this city, it's an intelligent fan base, knows the Canucks have to improve their blue line. So I said to him last night, you just got a forward. What about defense? I think he knew last night that they were close with Bear. But he said to me, the pursuit for a defenseman will continue. The urgency to find a defenseman is the same today as it was last year. The Canucks were, let me tell you this, the Canucks were in on all the defensemen, all the big names in the summer, but they were not willing to pay the price that some other teams did, but they tried. They tried, guys, but they weren't willing. The prices were high in the summer. And I just cannot tell you enough that they tried to hit some home runs with defensemen, but
okay, Rick.
If they weren't, hold on
a second, because I'm getting a little bit fed up of this. Here, you a Star Wars fan, Ricky?
No,
or Star Wars is right in your era there. Late 70s? Wasn't that your...
He is Han Solo. Look at the guy.
No, exactly.
Gorgeous. No, I was a Star Trek guy.
Okay. All right.
Zoom me up, Scotty, or whatever it was.
Big fan, obviously. Big fan.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yoda, do or do not. There is no try.
Right.
Canuck fans don't want to hear, well, we tried to acquire a defenseman. It's do or do not. Today they did. So good on them for doing, but enough of the try shit in the summer. Oh, we tried. Well, there was a bunch of defense. There were a bunch of defensemen traded. You got none of them. There were a bunch of free agents there, although admittedly not a great class. You got none of them. Yeah. So your defense was left wanting, and now you've got to patch the damn emergency situation in season after the injuries.
How about if Word would have foreseeable? No, but hold it. You've had your say. How about if word would have leaked through the media that they never tried to get the big names, that they never tried to get a defenseman in the summer, and they just stood pat? That could have been a report as well. What I'm trying to tell you is they weren't willing to pay the prices on some pretty big names, defensemen that were available. They tried. They didn't do it. And they got to be held accountable for that. There's no question. Mm-hmm. But the bigger story would have been, Matt, for me, if they didn't try to get those defensemen in the summer. They did.
Fair. I'm just saying it's very, very easy to say, oh, well, we tried on defensemen.
Okay, well, let's move on to this obvious question then. Is this it? I mean, I think in the here and now, I don't know if the Studnicka plays every night. I think Ethan Bear does. But it's still, we're talking about the sixth defenseman most likely. Rick, will they do something else to shake this up? Yes, they finally have broken the goose egg in the win column, but, Ethan Bear isn't going to take them to the playoffs on his back. Is there something bigger, do you think, that they will look into?
Well, here's what I can say about that. Everything we've heard since, remember the game that really got everybody pissed off, the Buffalo game, and they were, what were they, guys? 3-2. They came back, first came back from the road trip, and they got beat by Buffalo. Since then, we've been hearing the word patience a lot, and some people say, Rutherford wants to wait at least 20 games, 25 before he makes a major move with either it's behind the bench or on the ice. But pressure points change. I'm going to go back quickly to when Green and Benning got fired. A week before, somebody told me, the owner's going to be patient. You only have patience. You can have patience this week, and then something happens pressure point wise, and you change your mind. We can only tell you what we're hearing today. Next week, they could decide, we got to blow it up. So right now, we're hearing a lot of the word patience. They don't want to make a panic move. Jim said that on Hockey Night in Canada. But I will say this. The vultures are out. Teams are calling. Teams are calling for the Vancouver's young players. I was told this week that there have been calls about some of the Canucks young stars. Not a ton, but some. But I was told zero interest from Vancouver right now on moving names, and I would presume those names would be Demko, Pettersson, Hughes, those type guys. Zero interest. If you're asking guys, zero interest. When does that change? I don't know. But this week I was told zero interest in moving those type of guys. I've been told that there were some calls since the Buffalo game, but not a ton. But the vultures are out. Everybody knows Vancouver's in trouble. Yep. So why not? Why not call and why not try and call and see what you can get for Demko? Try to see if there's any interest.
Hey, they gauged what virtually all their players were worth on the open market last year when they took over, as they absolutely should have as a new management group that overturns every stone and takes a look. And if this season continues to go the way it is, they absolutely should do the same again. My dude, thank you for this. Much appreciated.
Can I get in a Bo Horvat update quickly?
Yes, please.
So I asked this week about Bo, and I was told the Canucks' slow start has not changed their thinking. They still want to re-sign their captain, who's in the final year of his deal. The goal is still to sign Horvat, but I've also been told both sides have drawn a line in the sand. I do not see Horvat dropping his price. Why would he? He's going to be a free agent soon. He could be one of the top centers available on July 1st. Lots of work to do today, but things can change quickly. We saw in Miller. They were far apart at the NHL draft, and a few weeks later they got it done. Time will tell. But the thing I was told about Bo is that it looks like a lot of work to do right now. But a lot of work to do right now, guys. But it looks like both sides have drawn a line in the sand.
And frankly, if you're this management group at this stage with Horvat, you have some time, and I would use it here, particularly to see how this room pulls out of this start, right? Because if this start continues to sink further, that's two in a row where your captain sort of hasn't been able to rally the esprit de corps, if you will, to pull themselves out of tough spots. Ricky, you're the best. Thank you for this, my friend. You have a wonderful weekend. Crown on us, and we'll talk next Friday.
All right, boys.